There's this guy named Brad that was in my grade.
Yeah, baby.
I get it. Brad was a kid. Brad was a kid who didn't come from the best part of town. He didn't have the best parents. He came from a broken family. He didn't have a lot of stuff going for him in life. But what he wanted to do this one year in 8th grade, he wanted to come out for the football team. He wasn't athletically gifted. Brad came out for the football team. He lasted about a day and a half. The second day of practice, I don't know exactly what happened, but something went down in the practice field. There was some mouthing off to a coach. There was some fighting of some sort, and Brad got kicked off the team. Coaches knew that he wasn't going to make it. They weren't going to play him. Brad got booted. He got sent back to school, which was a few blocks away. Go to the locker room, clean out your locker, get your stuff, and get out of here. Was the message to Brad that day. We come walking back after football practice, maybe an hour or so later. And Brad is sitting outside, right by the side door where we walk in. And he's smoking a cigarette. Now, listen to this. Brad is sitting in the most visible spot that he could be. You think that was a coincidence, or do you think that there was something going on? So Brad's sitting there as all these football jocks, myself included, walk by. And these other guys, I kept my mouth shut. But I kept my mouth shut. All these guys walked by him, and we're calling them names that I'm not going to repeat in here, but you guys know what I'm talking about. And we're calling them these things, and they were walking in there just making fun of this kid who you know is already at rock bottom, and I felt really bad about it. I felt really bad about it. I didn't do anything. We all walked in, we walked in the locker room, we got on with our day, and that was it. I wasn't around later that night. I wasn't around when Brad started drinking. When Brad started drinking a lot. And when he made the choice to get behind a car and drive down the street as fast as he could go at 14 years old, I guarantee you, thinking back about that, and I thought about it a lot, I guarantee you he wasn't just, oh, I want to party and I want to do this. I don't think Brad wanted to live. Because I think Brad was looking for something. Something that he wasn't getting offered by those guys that walked through, by the coaches, by the football team. There was something in Brad's life that he was missing, that he wasn't getting offered. Now this isn't a seminar on teen drinking. You guys have seen those, drinking and driving. Brad died that night. He lost his life that night. But this is a seminar on how we love and how we reach out to others like Jesus did. Because I guarantee you, if I walked into the school again and I was in Jesus' entourage, walking next to Jesus Christ, and I was being Jesus, which I'm called to be, I guarantee you I would handle that situation differently. Let's say tonight you walk down the street and you go to Yogurt Shack this evening, and you walk in and you're walking in and there's some guy. Say some dude is laying there in front of the doorway and he's got a knife in his stomach and he's bleeding on the ground. You literally have to walk over him to get into the frozen yogurt shack, and he's dying visibly in front of you. I bet you'd do something about it. I bet you'd see the urgency in that. I bet you would say, wow, this guy's dying, I'd have to give him some help. I would hope, just as a human, I would hope that you would do that. Unfortunately, there's people who don't. There's people in the Bible who didn't. But I would hope that you would see that moment and you'd be like, oh my gosh, that something needs to happen. I saw an accident once when I was in Minnesota, and I was driving on a highway, and it was in the middle of winter, and there was ice, and the car was going a little too fast. He cruised in front of me, and on a dime, literally went perpendicular and smashed directly into the median. Going 55 miles an hour, a car goes... I didn't stop, but I pulled out my cell phone and I called 911, because that's instinct, right? That's instinct. I was part of that story. I didn't choose to be. That was an interruption that happened in my life when I saw that and I was drawn in. If you were walking in frozen yogurt, that's an interruption that you weren't planning on, but you get drawn in. At what point does Brad not become an urgent thing for me? At what point does that not become an interruption for my life, where that's an urgency sitting there? I regretted not talking to him that day, because what happens is we get this mindset that it's not our problem, it's not our place, it's not our fault, but God tells us differently. God tells us differently. God says, when you see that, you see me. That's me. I'm sitting there. I'm questioning my life. I'm wondering what's going on. I'm wondering what the direction is. And so when we see those people in our lives, we're drawn in. We're part of that story. And we turn away from that. I'm including me. I just told you a story about me turning away from that. But we need to get locked into that. We need to get locked into other people around us and into those stories. We tend not to make that urgent. Let me say this, and I don't want this to sound condescending at all. Here's an example. Just an example. We see something like Haiti, okay? And we see an earthquake happen. What's the response when an earthquake happens and there's all this poverty that happens and all this stuff? Like, people are on TV, celebrities are giving money, they're putting like all these resources, everyone's getting on planes to go down there, and that's awesome. I'm not ripping on that whatsoever. That's what we need to be doing. As Christ followers, we got to be doing that. My question is that happened January 10th, I believe. Where were the people January 9th or the December before that? Because there was 80% of that country that was living in poverty. But that wasn't an emergency. See, when we become a part of Jesus' entourage, that's what we're looking for. We're in tune for that. We're in tune for that, but it takes a risk. It takes a risk being involved in it. And I think part of the problem we all have when it takes a risk is, I'm not good enough. I'm not significant enough. I can't do this because that's just for someone else to do. Someone else will see Brad sitting there. They'll be friends with him. That's not for me. When I was younger, I used to collect baseball cards and sports cards. Maybe some of you guys... Maybe collect Pogs? No? Okay. Never mind. Okay, I used to collect sports cards. And what I would do, I was a big pack guy. So if you guys do Yu-Gi-Oh! Maybe? Am I relating at all? Alright, so what I would do, I'd buy a pack of cards. I went to Target today. Okay, so I'd buy a pack of cards and I would open them up. eBay! No, alright, so I open this stuff up, right, and I'll take out like my best card. I don't know if I got anyone really good in there. It was a Ray Lewis card, sweet. So what I would do is I would go through these packs of cards and I would take my best one. And you know what I would do? I would go find a friend or a baseball card shop and I'd say, here's my best card, take it. And then they would give me more packs. And then I would open a pack of cards and I would take whatever was good in there and I would give it away. And all what was happening was I was left with a bunch of cards that really weren't worth much, and I was giving the best cards away for really no reason. I had nothing to show for it in return. We do that in our lives, you guys. We give our best stuff away because we think that there's something better that's going to come, instead of just settling, dude, I got these great cards. I want to be content with that. I want to be content with the hand that I've been dealt. We have this fear that we're insignificant, but God tells us otherwise. He calls us otherwise. I want to show you guys a video here in a second, and then I want to wrap this up.